make sure this camera is set up. Let me bring it down a little bit. Okay, I think that's good. Okay, all right. So I saw this question asked in a group that I'm in, and it's is it wise to have your high school jumper consistently do the high, long, and triple jump? And so there's many ways to interpret this. The way I happen to see it is, are you having your athlete do the long, triple, and high through the whole season, right? And what does it look like? So the few concepts that I immediately went to was, how many reps are they doing per day, management, all these things. So I'm going to cover a few of the pretty much where my brain goes when it comes down to how to manage an actual jumper. Now, there aren't that many athletes who are just all jumps only. As a whole, many athletes in high school do sprints and everything else. But let's say you have a dedicated jumper only. The first thing that I look at is my brain goes to is training days. This is not going to be in a chronological order. It's just going to be super random. But when it comes down to how to manage jumper is the training days, right? If you're looking at a long, high, and triple jumper, well, then those are 3 days of training. And how are you going to actually balance those days out? So when it comes to the actual management piece of it is sitting down early, as in before season starts, and figuring out what's the hierarchy, what's the tiers of the actual athlete's interest, right? Which ones do they enjoy? Now, I say their athlete interest is because it's the athlete that's experiencing this journey, right? So when you ask them as a coach, what events, if you had to put a list of 1, 2, and 3, what's the order that they should be in your perspective? That athlete's going to tell you exactly. I really, enjoy the high jump, but I'm not as good, but I actually see more potential in the triple jump. Well, that's great. Which one is it that you enjoy the most? So you get a breakdown of what they enjoy. The next thing is now just the coach's perspective. You might have, like I just said, a high jumper that loves it, but their potential is actually going to be the long jump. So we really should focus on keeping that. Well, having that conversation will allow them to understand what's really going on, your thought process as a coach, and just help build rapport. Because when you tell an athlete, yes, we're going to continue high jumping, but you're really going to go to college on long jump. So let's really start to put our base training into long jump so we can get you into a school, right? And then you can add in high jump, with more focus when you get to college. That's the main focus, right? Okay, so then when it comes to training days, I really start thinking about is how are we going to manage the actual training days, right? So obviously in the preseason, it's easier because you have so many more days of training. You have up to 6 days for high school of training, Monday through Friday, and you can also have the option of training on Saturday. And so when you have these days, you can easily get multiple training days in. You can do long jump one day, triple jump the next day, high jump the next day. You can do speed the next day. You can do hill runs and recovery on another day. All that works out, and that's great. The issue with that really comes down to is when it get to end season. Now, if you have 1 or 2 track meets, typically high school track meets will have 2 track meets per week. It's how do you squeeze in these multiple events that are so specific and so specialized? Well, that's a question that my brain directly goes to, and I'll go into even more later on. But yeah, so that's an important piece is how do you total the overall practices, right? And then when it comes to management, it's how many total practices do you actually have per year, per season, right? If we're in the spring season, an athlete comes out from a different sport, well, how many actual practices do I have, and how do I manage those practices? If the athletes focus and we decided as a team that we're going to focus on long jump and then triple jump second and then high jump last, well, if we have 30 practices, event specific training practices, right? How am I going to balance that out? Is it going to be 10 each? Is it going to be a mixture of 20% for one event and so on? That's something to really look at, and that conversation really gets to be had early, right? So for example, Dominique Rutolo, she was that exact example. And I told her, I said, okay, when we get to these high level track meets, state, for example, the girls triple jump and the girls high jump are at the exact same time. So when we're competing, it's going to be very challenging to try to jump your best high jumps while you're taking the pounding of triple jump. So I said, you're going to have to choose which one you want to do. You're not going to do both and suffer in both, because in her situation, she actually was capable of winning each. She was able to of winning triple jump and high jump. But the original question I asked her was, put this level of hierarchy on your events. And, high jump was fun for her, but she saw a future in triple jump. So it made my job easier, because when I asked her this question, I let her know, since triple jump is a priority, are you okay with keeping the triple jump as a focus, and then bumping off or dropping the high jump throughout the process of CIF and the playoffs, so to speak, for track and field. And she was like, yeah, 100%. Like, I'm okay with that. So I said, okay, we're really going to focus on highlighting your high jump so that the coaches know that you can and you could have won state, but you didn't even try because your main focus was this event or that event. And if she were to say, you know what, I want to do the high jump as a focus, then we would have adjusted our training schedule, adjusted our scheduling for that, right? The next thing is her understanding that she would have had multiple jumps. She would have had, upwards of 6 jumps for long jump, another upwards of 6 jumps for triple jump, and then also an unlimited amount of jumps for high jump. So those are those conversations that are that need to be had early in season. So when time comes, you could make some adjustments if needed, but we knew that high jump was going to end and we were going to keep our focus on the triple jump. So having those conversations. And then when it comes down to multiple meets, right? A lot of times athletes will have a Thursday or a Wednesday track meet. Then they'll have a track invitational on a Saturday. Well, many times the school's focus is to win a league championship. And if that is the focus, that's great, right? So now, how do we manage the total amount of reps when it comes to in competition jumping? Well, the first thing is, obviously, for California, we have 4 jump final for the events. So you have 4 jumps for a long jump, you have 4 jumps for a triple jump, and then high jump again, it's unlimited. So we were in a situation to where we were able to have her come in at 5 feet. And for high school, 5 feet is kind of like the cutoff. So that allowed her to get 1 jump in or less, and not less, but 1 jump in or just fewer jumps overall in the competition to help manage her jumps. So we knew, okay, we're going to max her out at 3 jumps, right? Then when it came down to triple jump and long jump, we were going to utilize all of her jumps. So if that was the case, and we had a dual meet and we had an invitational, then we would look at, okay, the dual meet, how important is it that we get maximum jumps? Are we focusing on, peak performance, or are we focusing on just getting a first place and scoring points? So many times for us, we just kept the jump day as a practice. So we utilized all of the jumps, and that really helped out. Right. Even if on her first jump, she popped off and would win the event, we still would focus on, okay, we're really going to work on this technical piece or the approach or whatever it may be. Then when it came down to high jump, we would focus on those things. And then when it came to the invitationals, I just to this day don't understand what's the value of having a primary jumper doing all 3 events at invitationals. There's no scored points for most track meets, and there's no real value, right? If we go to these invitationals, it's a showcase. So if I'm going to have my athlete who just jumped on Wednesday or Thursday, and they did upwards of 12 jumps, well, then why would I have them do another upwards of 12 jumps or more, at this invitational? So what we did was we kind of super scored her events. What I mean by super scored is we would put a focus on one or two events. So if she were to say, you know what, I feel good, then I would say, okay, great. Let's focus on long jump this week. So we're going to work on your speed, and then we're going to do a few triple jumps. But in the triple jump, we're going to just let your speed just fly and just go. And then other times I would say, this week coming up, we're going to focus on high jump specific, and we're going to have you do a high jump competition, and we're going to scratch you out of the long and triple and just put you in high jump. I want you to actually high jump, sit down between each jump. Like, that actually feels really good, not having to run back and forth, change your spikes, or whatever else. You can warm up at your own pace. It feels really good to do it that way, and it worked out for us. So the times that she actually did the high jump only, she had some big jumps and did really well, and some great attempts over 5'8", and attempting at 5'10" in high school. And then other days we just said, really going to keep the focus on long and triple, or we're going to do long jump. We're going to work on just your pop off, and we're actually going to use your triple jump takeoff for long jump today, so we can keep the focus towards our triple jump angles and trajectory. And each time we had this plan, it really worked out. So when it came down to the practice piece, is that we would practice, for whatever that theme was. So if the theme was high jump, then we would focus on high jump for that week, because there's no need to do long, triple, and high practice, right? We would work on our speed, work on our strength 2 days, hip mobility, then we would work on the high jump. So that would be our practice. So if we practice at an event itself, then we would actually practice at the dual meet, and then we would have a day recovery. Then we would practice again, or have a real competition at the invitational. So I know there's a lot of layers there, but and hopefully you're staying with me on that concept. But keeping the meet management set up and understanding how many days of practice there are, then how many days of practice you're going to be doing towards the events, but also they got to stay in shape. How many days of practice are you going to be focusing on speed endurance, speed quickness, stability, hip mobility, all those details. And then also, I wrote down the word state, but I don't know what that means. But I think that's pretty much it. The way that I would manage a athlete who is a long triple jump and high jumper is by first breaking down exactly what it is that is priority to them. Then I would break down what is priority to their long-term success within the sport. I would make sure that they always have a strength day of training. I would make sure they always have a conditioning day of training. I would always make sure they have a day that is focused on mobility and recovery. Then, depending on the part of season, I would have a practice day where it was during competition. And then I would tailor all of the training towards having that athlete showcase their talents at invitationals, not the dual meets, because at the invitationals is where you have more competition and more exposure. Because if you win a invitational, then you're going to probably be in the newspaper or be in articles, things like that, versus dual meets. And yeah, that's my information. If you have any questions, please shoot me an email at info@KeinanBriggs.com. You're welcome to comment below in the description and let me know what ideas you have. Or if you are a coach, let me know what you would do and how you would manage it. All right, until next time.